G'day and welcome to Talking Aussie Farming. I'm your host, Jono Weinstock from FarmCap, where we dive deep into Australian agriculture. Today we're joined by a very special guest in our Melbourne studio, Nigel Pannett from Compass Agri Australia. Nigel's very experienced in agriculture, and Compass Agri manages over $120 million of farm assets, predominantly in dairy in Tasmania. Nigel, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jono. Great to be here.
Great to have you. To start off, just keen to understand a bit about your background and I guess how you got into Agri in the first place. You got a bit of a Kiwi accent there, so keen to hear more.
Jono, background is New Zealand farming, Lower South Island, so sheep, beef initially, and then dairy as I was about heading off to uni. And, so ag uni, passionate about agriculture, so, following down that path. And the first role out of uni was vegetable seed production, which was a pretty cottage industry that actually got me looking around globally at different production areas and growing conditions, and got me curious about where things grow best, and also value of land, which led on to agricultural banking in New Zealand, and 20 years ago led me here to Melbourne and based out of Victoria initially.
There you go. So you've got experience understanding ag in New Zealand before moving to Australia, which is probably a unique insight. Yeah. What some of the key learnings do you think that you took from agriculture in New Zealand over to here?
Yeah, well, my time was through the 90s and early 2000s. It was quite a progressive time, and there was lots of change from technology and innovation happening, and probably off the back of significant dairy growth and probably overdevelopment in dairy at times, but it opened the door to looking at different ownership structures. There's lots of non-family systems getting started, and for the right or wrong reasons, some worked really well, and there was a lot of hype about agriculture, and so I came to Australia with quite that experience, and in the back of my mind was looking for opportunities to do something a bit different, to really give back to the industry.
And how did you, land on dairy? You've seen all sorts of agricultural sectors, and you've landed on dairy in Australia. What inspired you to go down that path?
Well, I was probably coming across an area that was, through connections and contacts in southern Tas that felt a bit like, Canterbury, New Zealand, which was the primary dairy area, and where there's been lots of development. And seeing the land value, seeing the day length and sunlight hours and conditions, and it was probably that our first venture kicked off, and where we we had the experience of starting something up from scratch with some patient investors and learning along the way.
Right, and here you are many years later managing, one of Australia's largest portfolios in dairy in Tassie. Let's talk through the Compass Agri journey, I guess. How did you get into this venture? It's not easy to raise $1, let alone tens of millions. Yeah. So you must be doing something right. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's work in progress, and I think initially it was about finding the best assets we could find, really secure water, and that we could deliver. If there's anything we can control in ag, it's being able to grow grass, or grass is our crop. Our cows are our combine harvesters, and milk's the byproduct. But it was about proving to those initial investors that we could make it work through the ups and downs initially, and then developing systems on farm, but also then getting the right structures to operate the investments with, and the funds around it. So, and capital that wants to be committed for 7 to 10 years and see the returns, but see the upside upon exit.
Okay, and so you've landed in an area of Tassie, which I believe was you saw opportunity, which might have been underdeveloped, and out of Australia's dairy regions, why Tasmania, and in particular, why this part of Tassie?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to visit the area in my 20s in vegetable seed production after being in countries like France and Holland and Denmark, which I was lucky enough to go to, and land back in Hobart and look at this valley that had phenomenal water resource and growing conditions for the types of crops we were growing. And I guess we landed on this area because I was encouraged many years later to go and have another look, and discovered that it was sitting underneath 30 hydro dams and hundreds of lakes that are all interconnected in the highlands of Tasmania, and it matched really to a T the growing conditions of some of the best dairy farms in Canterbury, New Zealand, and at significantly reduced price. So it was about we've got about to replicate what's happening in New Zealand, farming to the Australian conditions, which are quite similar. Mm-hmm. So that's really how we landed there.
That's clever. So you've developed dairy, which might not have been historically a dairy area. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a few there was a few dairy farms, but there was also historically hops, some cherries starting to get going, blueberries, strawberry runners, which has all really taken off now and over the last 10 years. We were going into a pretty tightly held, seventh generation Tasmanian farming area, so we had to earn a license to be there,
right?
Social license to be
That's
there.
true.
Really,
Okay.
we weren't expected to be around when we first arrived for long.
Okay. Well, now you've been there quite a while, and you've accumulated assets over time and managing a significant operation. Yeah, what's the size of it now? How many, milkers are you running? And
So 5,500 cows,
right,
and over across 7 properties, and wholesale investors that are in each of the structures for 5 to 7 years. 45 people on the ground, very hands-on and capable operational support around them, and a team that's able to come together. And there's so many skill sets required to run farms these days and agricultural businesses, let alone dairy farms. So what I really enjoyed is getting all those people together, and everyone's got a critical role.
That's right. And I guess early days you probably enjoyed the 4 a.m. starts, getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, no, look, I've put the odd cup on, but I'll be honest and say that that wasn't where my time was best spent. But I certainly believe that those people were critical. The people putting the cups on are as important as our investors, really. So
that's right. No, that's
but they do joke about my shiny shoes when I go down there.
Right, no dirt on the boots. Okay, no, that's understandable. It is hard yakka, and I guess we invest in lending to dairy farms regularly, and it's one of the risks we see is, can the family have a day off, and if so, who's managing the cattle on a day-to-day basis? So I guess once you get to a certain scale, you've got some good coverage there, so you've got some confidence that someone's going to turn up in the morning.
I think the experiences in New Zealand, we had there was a lot of equity partnerships. I mentioned earlier getting going, and that meant that the operators were getting a look at some building some equity themselves, and that's always been something that we've tried to achieve, and different ways of looping them into what the investors see back as well. So how can we give them a good place to be, help them grow, loop them into their, sort of outperformance, I guess. But then is there something bigger than we look at different structures for them?
That's good.
For really good performers.
So they've got some skin in the game, have they? Some of the key staff, or
there's in a sense,
yeah. Okay, that is smart, because the best dairy farms we've seen is the family that's operating it.
Yeah, that's right.
That are prepared to do the hard work, rather than just work for an hourly rate, I guess.
Yeah,
and benefit from some of the upside. Now, there is some great technology around helping in dairy. Halter, I believe you're quite an avid user of and fan of, who actually coincidentally share an office with us in Melbourne. So we see them, very motivated sales team running around the office. Yeah, how has that impacted your business?
Oh, look, we invested early into Halter, and we've been using it for 3 years now. I think every animal's got a collar on it, and big investment, but it's has really changed how we farm. Halter's got the virtual fencing, so the animals are being shifted around according to when they need to be milked and what they need to be fed. The data coming through from satellite to pasture to the animals ruminating or grazing, if it's on heat, if it's not well, we're getting all this information, 1,200 data points per
Right.
minute per animal, and our people aren't getting up and getting on a motorbike out in the wet and cold and dark. First thing in the morning, they're walking straight to the shed. So it's helped. It's helped professionalise, I guess, and helped the image, with our people, and for dairy. And the biggest thing we need in dairy is, well, there's capital, there's great assets, but there's talent. We need that coming through.
That's true. No, it's a pretty impressive product, and I haven't seen it firsthand, but the efficiencies, just improves the economics and makes life a bit easier to run a dairy with that level of information at your fingertips.
It does, and we're challenged on, by our investors, and we're challenged ourselves to make sure it's returning for us. But what we're seeing is really encouraging, and we're fourth season in this year. So
okay, that's great. And what do you love about dairy?
Well, I mean,
hopefully you're not lactose intolerant.
No, not. I'm not, but I think I said earlier we harvest water, and we do overlay all the different systems across a farm before we buy it. Generally, we're developing from scratch. So dairy is something that has consistently come out on top, and of course we've got better at it over the years. I love it that you can bring a group of people together, and there's roles for every skill set, from finance through to putting cups on cows, or practical side of things. And I think it's an industry that's in more demand, and than it used to be, but it's also stood the test of time, and it's a commodity that stands up through things like economic turn down, and COVID, for example, and the push on protein that's going on globally at the moment. I don't think we've seen it really hit here yet. And Australia used to produce 15 billion litres of milk, and now it's down to 8, and the population continues to grow.
That's right. So there's demand. Are you seeing demand from processors and some price opportunities, do you think? It's there's a lot of pricing risk and nervous farmers this season with with dry land and crops, whereas with dairy, what do you see happening at the moment?
Oh, I think it's there's challenges that certainly drought's a big risk and has a big effect. I think globally there's a lot of milk around at the moment, but we're still seeing quite a strong global trade, whereas but Australia's production has shifted from a higher portion exported to more domestic supply. So we need the milk processors to do well here too.
That's right.
To keep the industry strong. And but I think no matter what system of dairy farming you're running, whether it's barn or in between or full grass like we are, you've just got to have the good operators to operate at the top end to make it work.
That's right. Well, hopefully the milk, from what we see anyway, there's processors, like working with good producers consistently and want to maintain those contracts. They don't want to lose them. And there's been a little bit of increase year on year on price. Not sure what you're seeing. And
and there's been pressure on input costs, but there has, and it's all about the margin.
That's right.
We've seen the numbers we were doing 11 years ago. Costs and milk price of they're almost matching, but the numbers have doubled. So the returns, but land has. I think it's about buying well as well.
That's right.
If you're overpaying, if it's not a quality resource, if there's too much overexcitement about getting into a space, then it has has less of a chance of being successful. That's
true. Well, you're kind of in two businesses, right? You're running operating risk, milking cows every day to make a profit, but also you've invested in land. And what you've done is quite unique, with the angle on water, managing water risk. And it's big news. It's always topical, water, but I think what you've done is quite innovative. Keen to just understand a little bit more about your methodology in land selection based on the water, which is quite clever.
So it's what we knew, it's what I knew, and just not readily available. And I guess in a country like Australia, people were more used and adapt to dealing with drought, and I didn't want to be exposed to it. So it was about finding somewhere with a water resource that, there was comfort there, that you could bring those first 5 investors in and paint them a picture of the next 7 to 10 years and set about achieving it. But it's really bare land for us, generally unirrigated, with a good solid water supply. We're not on a scheme where we're mostly irrigating directly out of rivers, and our water entitlements sit underneath the minimum required to generate hydro. So they're always generating hydro. I think hydro's something like 120 mil for the Tas government every year. So maybe more depending on what's reaching the mainland. But we wanted to be underneath that requirement to generate and just underpin our 15 tonne of grass per hectare per year, and then worry about all the other things.
Right, okay. So you've got plenty of water in a strategic area.
Yeah.
With some support from the Tasmanian government, it sounds like.
Well, they want the power. They want that's important revenue, and the infrastructure's there, and it's a pretty incredible resource that was set up 50, 60 years ago. So we're just beneficiaries of that, and it's tightly held land, so it's been gradually acquiring and working with locals in some cases alongside them.
That's right. I think there was a recent transaction, wasn't there, in Tasmania with some international buyers.
That's right.
Coming in. So look, it's good for landowners. And because it's tightly held, it sounds like a high quality land asset.
Yeah.
So your investors get to benefit from income, but also capital appreciation in the land over the long term. Yeah. So it's a great way to participate in owning a slice of a dairy farm longer term, isn't it? Without having to put cups on.
That's right. And as I say to them, sometimes it's our problem is our opportunity is keeping the people there on the ground. And, if this changes, bringing new people in and keeping, that's probably we spend 80% of our time talking about people. But if we've got that, the investor aligned to what we're doing, then we can set about, continuing to bring the people in around on the ground that we need.
Okay. And I guess the opportunity now, could you add on an 8th, 9th and 10th neighbouring property if you needed to, or, where do you see dairy going and Compass Agri's growth?
Yeah, that's still that's the goal, and that we're working on current opportunities. We've got new properties we're looking at and working with local people on, and we're looking at bigger opportunities in the future with the portfolios as they are.
Okay, so more cows and more land. Sounds
more
like
cows,
same strategy.
Yeah, similar strategy. I think it still holds up and it's still in demand. And I won't say it's getting easier, but time helps to sort systems out, and but it's all about that talent, and scale does help that if you're looking after them.
That's true. And in terms of investor interest, it's always a challenge.
Yeah,
there's lots of investment opportunities available. I guess. What's your experience been like in speaking to the range of investors that you've got on board? Yeah,
I mean, for us, it's probably been about like-minded people. Generally, our investors have the wholesale or family office. There's some connection, not in all cases, but some connection back to the land. Some direct. Some have been big operators that have finished farming day to day, but of wanting diversified investment. Some have been close to ag or have family that have been in ag that have done well. Generally they've all built their own businesses, had exposure to risk, and if we're transparent with them, they want to be there for the journey. We get them down once a year down to the river. And
that's good. Come visit,
meet the people.
Great.
Stand on the river, have talk about what we're doing and some highlights, and put on a lunch and maybe visit a vineyard on the way home with them and get them back to Hobart. So, we enjoy that part of it. We enjoy knowing them all and knowing them well, and it's a fair bit of it's constantly working on keeping trust and building trust.
That's right, and take home some cheese and wine, and it's a good lifestyle investment. They get to see, feel, and touch as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Now that's clever. Look, we're also in a similar space, I guess, agricultural investment. Investors have an opportunity to gain exposure to agriculture. In your case, kind of medium medium term with asset ownership.
Yeah.
So exposure to owning, whereas we're kind of shorter term credit.
Yep.
But it's interesting speaking to investors outside of ag and explaining the story of the strength of not only the sector but also the underlying asset, the real estate in ag. And Tassie is a great example. You've got a tightly held land with water, and it's a great kind of medium long term asset. It's not going backwards.
And I guess similar to you, they've got exposure in different areas and it's not generally it's not all of their exposure and it's a part that for us for them it's about a strong asset underpinning what they've invested and then it's up to us to generate some cash for them along the way.
Yeah, totally. And it's it's uncorrelated to other businesses, economics, and also real estate. So there's different underlying factors. So that's our pitch anyway, and it seems to work. Now I guess you've probably travelled the regions and around Australia. Just what are there any other regions or sectors that you quite find of interest, or are you just all dairy? You've seen all of New Zealand and Australia now and landed in Tassie, but are there any other sectors that you really like or enjoy?
I mean, I love growing things. My passion was plant at university, plant science, and I still feel like we're cropping because we're growing grass. But we're it's not a big part of what we're doing, but we're growing some vegetable seed production. We have grown some potatoes down there on the farms.
Okay,
certainly would look at other areas. Have had a pretty good look around, but by no means we've had to be focused on one place for 11 years to make it work, and open to other areas as we grow and opportunities come up and investors want exposure to different things. It's all about having the right operator on the ground and working out ways to find the opportunities and back them into it.
That's true. So if I gave you an open checkbook, sounds like I already know the answer to this one. What region or sector would you invest further in?
I'd be for the next year or two where we are.
Where we are,
currently,
stick to Tassie. Okay,
but not have the blinkers on to other opportunities.
Okay, well, if you've got some spare land, you can try a few crops in there.
That's right. That's right.
On the land, etc. Yeah, no, I guess part and parcel of what we do is we get to see all sorts of agricultural regions. Tomorrow on a 6 a.m. flight to Perth, and then a 3-hour drive north, then back home the next day. To a region that I've never been to, just south of Geraldton.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. You get to see all sorts of regions. Tassie's interesting. It's probably confirms what you're doing, but I guess we fill gaps outside the banks, and for the most part, Tassie's probably the lowest area of demand requesting credit from us, which means it's good quality farms and cash flow and less needs outside the bank. So that probably just highlights the strength of the operators in that region. We get the odd deal here and there, but relative to other areas, it's probably our lowest demand for money, which is interesting.
Well, you raise a point there, and I think the work that you do and there's a need for it, and there's a real need for that maybe more nimble non-bank gearing, and we haven't utilised that as yet, but it's something that is a definite need, and I guess the water might mean that it's not needed as much, or the traditional ownership styles, but we've gone with traditional equity and debt.
Okay.
I think different climatic conditions and events can mean that your sort of funding is required, and I guess that back to why we went into this initially, and the driver is that I always felt that family and bank, there could be a different funding, even, for family as well, and so it's good to see some of these different funding systems and mechanisms coming in, because it has been quite traditional to date.
That's right. Look, there's always a gap to plug. We're funding a dairy farmer now. It's a 38-year-old first-time farmer who grew up, a migrant, came over, inherited some money, and is taking on a dairy that has traditionally run up to 500-600 cows. And it's his first venture as a farm owner in Australia, and just couldn't get the support from the banks. Modestly geared, not super high risk. There's some operator risk, so he hasn't run 500 cows himself before, but there's a team and a vendor. So we think it's a great piece of dairy farmland in an irrigated region in northern Victoria. So that's just a classic case of helping get a farmer. And you need the youth. What the opportunity we see is there's not many 38-year-olds who are prepared to put in this level of work and double and triple a dairy farm. And so that's what we're backing, but the underlying land's great. So that's a classic case of a bank saying, no, too hard. Yeah. Come back in a year, but as soon as he's got a year's worth of milk history, I think the banks will be chomping at the bit to help.
Can I ask how you came across that opportunity?
How we came across? We see an abundance of farmers needing help every month that call us for all sorts of challenges. And this was through a finance broker in northern Victoria and said, hey, we've got this young hungry farmer who's bought, had an option. I had a 12-month settlement date and was hunting around, tried the banks, failed. Time's running out. We need a solution. Can we come in? We go. We meet. We have a look around. We meet the vendor. We meet the farmer. We dig into his history as best we can. And he grew up on cropping, but he's been working hands-on to learn the business already. And so you've got to witness and see great irrigated cropping land, plenty of feed, the economics. You look at the milk checks. It's been farming for 65 years in that region. Yeah. So he's buying into an existing profitable business. Yeah, so we see the risk is very low. But we need to explain to our investors that what the opportunity is, and he's paying a premium above bank rates, but it gets him going, and in 12 months' time we expect him to find a new home, and we've just created it. I guess kept the industry moving. Yeah,
absolutely. Created an opportunity, created a career path, and great that that operator was able to come across to you guys.
Yeah. So that's a good example, and another dairy, I guess, northern New South Wales, suffered some severe wet weather historically, and then really impacts performance, and then banks get nervous after a year or two, and debt starts creeping up, and then they need to. So we saved a dairy farm that was otherwise about to be wound up. Yeah. So you keep the 100-year farming family want to hang on for dear life until and keep them farming. So that's just a good example of, I guess, a couple of dairy examples.
Different options of capital, different options how capital can be involved in farming, and how operators can seek it out.
Yeah, but we love dairy as a sector. Yeah. So when we look at all the sectors, the regularity and the frequency, and it's measurable, and you can, which is quite rare. Yeah. You don't have to wait.
You check every month. And,
that's right.
Really, the inputs, depending on the system, can be highly measured daily.
Yeah, correct. So the economics, if the economics stack up, and you can look under the hood and find out what's going on. So that's what we like about dairy, and I'm guessing probably the same. Same for you guys.
Yeah, and the more technology is helping with that transparency too, to see what's happening, and if we're finding animals before they're getting sick.
That's right.
If we're our vet would say if he was selling antibiotics, he'd be going broke now. Because they're getting treated before they're really genuinely ill, and are we feeding them too much? Well, we're finding out if they're underfed or overfed. We're finding out before it's either hitting the vat and less milk, or hitting their backs with overfeeding.
That's good.
It's all efficiencies.
Should put that into humans. You don't need another dessert.
We've been know more about our animals than we know about ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, and you can control what they do, whereas it's probably harder to control your urges. Now, I guess just in your experience and travels, just keen to see if you've had any fun or interesting, quirky experiences on farm in your journeys. You've been, from a young guy in New Zealand through to farming in Australia.
Oh, there's a lot there. There's a lot that I couldn't share, but I think it's funny now. But I think back to our first conversion, and 3 weeks before calving, having 700 cows on the point of calving in a shed lying on the ground, because we couldn't get a permit for from local council to just construct the shed. The dairy part was all built. We couldn't get the it's not that funny, but it's for looking back on it. That's part of the journey of getting started, and we got around that, and then happy to say Tas and the government has come a long way in terms of support for agriculture, and the local councils. Things are quicker these days. So There's plenty of funny stories I could say, but that, without exposing anyone or throwing anyone under the bus, it's probably something that you look back on those things that were tough at the time, and you shake your head and laugh, but you just got to get through it.
That's right. Oh, that's very good. Now, I guess favourite country pub you've been around. Are there any
pub?
Or venues that you've been to around Tassie or non-Tassie? And wineries, obviously, you've probably spent some time in New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think you can't beat Salamanca, in Tasmania to entertain a few people, and
in Hobart.
In Hobart,
yeah.
In Hobart.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, the local pub, any little local pub in our small towns that we're part of is good to go in and get the teams around and enjoy. So,
that's good. And wine? Have you enjoyed Tassie wine?
Yeah, Tassie wine's good. There's some good local wineries that have popped up and continued to go well. So, the cool climate wines seem to be pretty popular at the moment.
They are popular. And also, I guess, have you got a palate for cheese? If we're at a dinner party and there's a thing of cheeses, can you pull out some?
I wouldn't say I've got a palate, but we get our Saputo bag of cheese every year, and share that around the local community around home, because there's that much of it. But yes, it's all I guess it's all part of the Tassie food story.
That's right. Okay, Nigel, thanks for coming on our show. It's been a great chat about Tassie Agri. I think it's a great investment opportunity. I guess the test of time has demonstrated successful growth to 120 mil. So encourage investors to speak to Nigel and participate in the next round of growth.
Thanks, John. Great to be here and great to talk to you.
Excellent. Thanks Nigel.
Cheers.